Hello, and welcome back to TV Time Reviews. I mentioned on my Patreon page that I had a cold last week, so I wasn't able to film, meaning this video will be strictly voiceover, which I have never done before, so this will be interesting. I'm sure the question you're asking is, why on earth would you review Heroes now? Right? No? Okay, well, pretend that is what you're wondering. On the one hand, I know this review won't really be relevant to anyone because it's been over a decade since the show came out, and it's not like Reborn made any sort of meaningful impact. But on the other, Heroes is a perfect example of the kind of cultural examination I'm trying to accomplish with this series, and also, I already had this script written and cold, so here we are. Heroes was the brainchild of Tim Kring, the creator of Strange World and Crossing Jordan, two shows I have never seen, actually. The idea was pretty simple. Kring wanted to create a character-driven story about superheroes in modern society, something we in 2018 have absolutely no familiarity with. In fact, when Heroes was originally conceived, it was meant to be a serialized anthology where the storyline and characters would change season to season, with the main connection being the world the stories took place in. If Kring had gotten his way, Heroes might have ended up something like a superhero version of American Horror Story. But NBC wasn't thrilled with the idea, and Heroes ended up with a more traditional format. The general premise of the show is presented in the first season. Normal people develop superpowers, plot ensues. The connective element that links the characters and plot of the first season is the show's marketing catchphrase, "Save the cheerleader, save the world." One of the characters we meet in season 1 is Isaac, an artist who paints visions of the future. He's unaware of his ability until he realizes everything he paints ends up a headline in the newspaper. Once he's discovered his power, he realizes the city and the country are in great danger, as one of his paintings depicts a catastrophic explosion in the center of New York City. The first season builds towards the eventual climax, with the characters working to unravel the mystery and hopefully save the cheerleader and the world. But it's the path to get there that's really the focus of the show. Not surprising, considering Kring wanted to focus on the characters, not so much on the plot. And season 1 does present some interesting characters. They may not be as diverse as we would expect from a more modern show, but their storylines are compelling, and it's easy to connect with that very human element. These are normal people living normal lives, trying to navigate their decidedly not normal superpowers. The following 3 seasons are divided into 4 volumes and follow primarily the same cast of characters on increasingly more convoluted and, frankly, uninteresting plots. Season 2 deals with a virus that will cause a global pandemic if it gets loose. Season 3 tries to shift character dynamics by having heroic characters be villainous and vice versa, culminating in some truly ridiculous nonsense. And Season 4...
The name's Samuel, and I think we're gonna be great friends.
Why is the circus always a royal dumpster fire? I hate to be so dismissive of anything past season 1, but honestly it's almost laughable how poorly the rest of the show does when compared with season 1. By the end, ratings and viewership had dropped to under half from where they started, and the characters on the show had been made to jump through so many hoops they no longer seemed like complex and interesting people reacting to the world around them, but rather plot devices existing only to advance a convoluted and uninteresting narrative. Remember how I mentioned that Kring's original vision was a serialized anthology, where season to season the characters would change and provide different perspectives on the world Kring had created? That becomes a lot more apparent when you get to these later seasons and have characters acting completely against everything they had previously believed in to fulfill roles that would be much better suited to new characters. The story feels like it should be about different people, but because the network had decided the show needed to follow the same characters, existing characters were altered, even mangled, in order to fit very different roles. As you can probably imagine, this was a major contributor to the later seasons of the show not being very enjoyable to watch. Hell, the plot synopsis on the Wikipedia page for season 4 is one line. One line! The entire internet can edit a Wikipedia page to say whatever they want, and this is all the internet had to say about season 4. Now, I don't lay this entirely at the network's feet. Kring wasn't able to adapt his vision to fit the format he had been given, and the writer's strike had a significant negative impact on the quality of the show. So where does that leave us? Heroes started strong and failed miserably, but why and what does that mean? Well, there's some other factors that we haven't touched on yet. Heroes premiered just 2 years after Lost, right at the peak of the Lost phenomenon. And in case you don't remember the early 2000s, Lost was a big deal. It got talked about on network news and by normal people in casual conversation. Lost has even been referred to numerous times as one of the best TV shows of all time. Now, I'm not saying you or I should agree with that assessment. Entertainment has grown considerably since 2010. My point here is that this was the audience and entertainment atmosphere that was around when Heroes aired. And again, Heroes did very well initially. The first season was hugely popular, viewed by almost 14 million people, and the first episode of season 2 alone had almost 17 million viewers. That's the peak of the entire show. Then the second episode of season 2 had just under 12 million viewers, and the numbers continued to fall until you reach season 4, which in total was viewed by less than 7 million people. That's less than half of the viewers they had when they started. So that leaves us with the question that critics have been pondering since 2010. What the hell happened? How does a show that seemed very promising by modern standards and could have been really successful fail so spectacularly? We've discussed some of the contributing factors, but I think the essence can be explained very simply. The timing was bad. Specifically, there are 2 key factors to explain what went wrong with Heroes, and they're both related to the timing. First, and less significant, in my opinion, is the writer's strike. Of the planned 24 episodes in Season 2, only 11 were produced, and quite frankly, it shows. Season 2 is vastly inferior to Season 1, and this setback ended up being a crippling blow that the show was never able to recover from. The second reason Heroes flopped, and the reason I think is much more significant, is that the vision of the creator, what the network was willing to produce, and what audiences wanted at that time didn't match up. Kring wanted to create an epic, character-driven anthology. He wasn't interested on focusing on the world, but rather building the world through the perspectives of the characters as they learn to live with and use their powers. NBC wasn't ready for a show where the characters, that critical piece that brings the audience back every week, changes. 10 years later, we know that an anthology series can be very successful, but at the time, no one knew that, and I'm not sure audiences would have been into it either. Like I mentioned, audiences at the time were loving Lost, which was certainly a character-driven story with a large cast similar to Heroes, but also able to focus on the world and invited the audience to try and solve its mysteries. Heroes, meanwhile, at least according to Kring's vision, wanted to challenge audiences to follow the narrative, unravel the mystery, while simultaneously getting to know new characters every season. Wasn't really something the network was going to go for. Are these the only reasons that Heroes flopped? No, there's oceans of complexity to why Heroes disintegrated in the end, and none of that changes the fact that the first season is still a really enjoyable show. What I think Heroes illustrates very well is that when you have a show that's very promising, it can still fail when presented in the wrong context. Thank you very much for watching. I really hope you liked this because Heroes, while being a total train wreck, is still very near and dear to my heart. But that's whatever. Have you seen the early 2000s classic? And if so, what did you think of it? Share your thoughts down in the comments. And as always, if you like this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and sharing it. It's really helpful because YouTube hates content creators. And of course, please subscribe for new reviews every other Thursday. Oh, and if you like TV Time reviews, head on over to my Patreon page. Through November, all text posts were public, so you can get a little taste of behind-the-scenes goodness, including detail on this, the video you have just watched. I think that's all. Until next time, Couch Potatoes.